Hello, this is the call to order of the Durango City Council on August 19th, 2025. And it's about 5:30. Could we have the roll call?
Yes, thank you. Councilor Coso? Here. Councilor Buell?
Here.
Mayor Pro Tem Woodruff?
Here.
Councilor Yazzie?
Here.
Or excuse me, Mayor Yazzie.
Here.
Apologize. And Councilor Gonzalez. And next will be an introduction, or excuse me, reading of the Indigenous Land Acknowledgement. Stop it. How'd you do that?
This is a call to honor and respect Indigenous sovereignty and self-determination. As residents and visitors of Durango, we are called upon to educate ourselves about the history and cultural heritage of the land we inhabit. The city of Durango is situated on the ancestral homelands and territories of the Nuchu, Ute, Jicarilla Apache, Pueblos of New Mexico, Hopi-Sinom, Hopi, and Dene Navajo nations. The original stewards of this land were forcibly removed and exposed to countless atrocities by the United States government, including repeatedly broken treaties, forced assimilation, the tragic legacy of Indian boarding schools, and the loss of ancestral homelands. We recognize lasting generational trauma exists within Native communities today. We affirm the continuing importance of ancestral sites to descendant communities as integral to the living cultural landscape. This acknowledgement only becomes meaningful when combined with accountable relationships and informed actions. May this serve as a step toward inclusion and reconciliation.
And may we have an introduction of the translator.
Hi, good afternoon. My name is Liz Torres, and I am here with my colleague, Sam Guzman. We're here with the Community Language Co-op to provide language justice so that everyone can speak and hear in the language of their heart. In order to access this on Teams, you will go to the More menu, and from there you can select the channel of your choice, English or Spanish, and you will be able to hear the interpreter in the language that you selected, and it'll be a little bit louder than what the room is hearing. Buenas tardes, mi nombre es Liz Torres y estoy aquí con mi colega Sam Guzman y el día de hoy seremos sus intérpretes de la Cooperativa Comunitaria del Lenguaje. Estamos aquí para practicar justicia lingüística y así todos podrán hablar y escuchar en el idioma de su corazón. Para poder tener acceso al canal de español, usted irá al canal de español por medio del menú de más, que son los 3 puntitos, y allí podrá seleccionar inglés o español. We can go ahead and get started.
And the next item is opening remarks by Mayor and Council.
Oh, sorry. Oh, goodness. Sorry, I forgot about this. Coming in late. I just have a quick administrative item, if that's okay, Mayor. My son, my firstborn, is moving into the dorms tomorrow at 8 a.m. It's earlier than we thought it was going to be, and so I need to leave. I need to get on the road tonight, and so I'm hoping to be out of here at 7 p.m. if that's okay. And so I'm going to ask for excused absence, maybe for the end of the meeting. And then I'm hoping that we can move 11.4 above 11.1. I just think that's the most important resolution, and I'd like to be a part of the conversation there, if that's okay with everybody.
Second.
Discussion? Oh, acclamation, okay. All righty.
All in favor? Aye.
Yeah.
Great. Thank you, guys. Appreciate it.
And it doesn't look like there's any items under presentations and proclamations. And so the next item would be city manager updates.
Yes, Mayor and Council, we do have one quick update. Scott McLean, Parks and Recreation Director, to provide an update on Durango Mesa Park and Lot 14.
Good evening, City Council. Some good news to share, just as our ongoing partnership with Durango Mesa Foundation in the city. The foundation has conveyed 390 acres. It's Lot 14, which is going to be the north of Potskey's Point, if you're familiar with that, on the east side of the ridge. It's valued at $1.8 million. We don't see much development happening in this area, but kind of using it more as it's got a couple trails that already exist there. letting it provide some wildlife buffer, which is some discussions that we've had with Colorado Parks and Wildlife, and creating it. It's a continuous city land, BLM's on the other side. It was private in the middle, so it creates a larger parcel of public lands that could support the wildlife there, and we're planning to still maintain the seasonal closures. So Durango Mesa currently has been working on a lot of messaging for the construction project. So once we get through that in a week or so, we'll get some press releases out to the community and share that information as well. So thank you.
And the next item is committee, board, and liaison reports.
So Jessica, you're still on here?
Right. I do have a lot. I went to the Lions meeting. I'll undo it. I gotta like keep it in front of me, but I can give my update first. So that's fine. Let's see here. We have a board retreat next week for the Alliance, so that'll be good to get all of us on board in the same place for what's coming up in the next year to 5 years. We during the Alliance meeting, we got an update on the summit, which is September 11th, and we heard from one of the keynote speakers that's actually from Ignacio, and she's coming back and going to be one of the keynotes at the summit. So if you haven't gotten your tickets for the Alliance, you should get on and buy your tickets. The theme is Rooted in Community. We also heard from Mike French, did a great update and presentation on our prosperity office. And then Michelle Abram gave an update on the USDA Agriculture Farm Service Agency. So that was great. That's all I had.
Kip?
Thank you, Mayor. Had my first airport commission meeting, went smoothly, and dovetailed into the ribbon cutting out at the new baggage claim. Tony and team did a fantastic job. Love to see the turnout, including our mayor, as well as county commissioners, Southern Union Indian Tribal leadership, and even the Ignacio welding team made it out there. So it was good to see all those folks participating. Congratulations again, Tony, on doing a great job getting that phase open. More to come on that as well. Thank you, Mayor.
Dave?
Thank you, Mayor. I was able to attend the Chamber of Commerce meeting this morning. A lot of talk around just things going on within the chamber. They had Trevor Bird there with the Durango Harley Davidson talking about the Labor Day motorcycle rally and how great it's been to see that turned around from the organization that it was previously. So yeah, a lot of conversation around what they're planning on doing for Labor Day, and yeah, really good conversation there. Additionally, I had CDC and Community Development Commission as well as Financial Advisory Board interviews. The first Financial Advisory Board I had with Jessica. We had a lot of really great candidates. It was awesome to see that sort of participation. Went with Mayor Yazzie to the Community Development Commission. Yeah, again, a lot of really good candidates, and so it was really fun to be a part of all of those. And then lastly, I attended a Colorado Restaurant Association meeting with the Durango chapter, where the Legislative Affairs Director, Nick, for the statewide association gave a talk on potential legislative impacts to our local restaurants coming to the legislative session. But yeah, it was, yeah, good meetings overall. Thank you.
Thank you, Dave. Alrighty, I also went to the airport opening along with Kip and saw the amazing expansion of our airport, and they gave a little welcoming speech to the people who came, and I thought it was well received, that people were really excited with the art there and how beautiful it looks in the terminal. And I also went to the fire mitigation tour up here at Durango West 1 and 2. And basically that was concerning how all the agencies here are putting together their funds to do fire mitigation in the area. And of course, the interviews for participants on our boards and commissions. And I think that's about all. Okay. Go up to number 7.
And so if there's no further reports, the next item on the agenda is public comment for items under consideration of adoption, which there has been no one signing up for items on the agenda tonight. And then that leads into the consent agenda. So under 8.1, approval of meeting minutes, we have approval of the minutes from the City Council regular meeting on August 5th, 2025. We also have the minutes for the City Council special meeting on August 11th, 2025. Under 8.2, final reading of ordinances, we have 8.2.1, which is an ordinance amending in pertinent part the Durango Code of Ordinances, Chapter 24, Traffic and Vehicles, Article 1, Application and Adoption of Model Traffic Code, Section 24-3, Amendments to Model Traffic Code. And then we have 8.2.2 under final reading of ordinances, which is an emergency ordinance of the City of Durango delegating authority to the city manager to impose fire and smoking restrictions deemed necessary or proper to mitigate fire danger in or near the city. Under 8.3, adoption of resolutions by consent, we have a resolution electing to carry forward the City of Durango's 2025 private activity bond allocation pursuant to the Colorado Private Activity Bond Ceiling Allocation Act for future multifamily housing projects. There are no items under approval of other administrative items. There are no items under request for public hearing. Under 8.6, introduction of ordinances, we have 8.6.1, which is an ordinance amending in pertinent part the Durango Code of Ordinances, Chapter 27, Land Use and Development Code, Chapter 2, Zones, Uses and Development, Article 2, Special, Limited, and Conditional Use Standards, Section 2-3-2-3, accessory dwelling units to eliminate minimum lot size requirements. Under 8.6.2, we have an ordinance and amending in pertinent part the Durango Code of Ordinances, Chapter 13, Business License, Chapter 13, Licenses and Business Regulations, Article 1, General Business Licenses, Section 13-2, License Required. And 8.6.3 is an ordinance repealing in pertinent part the Durango Code of Ordinances, Chapter 15, Municipal Court, Article 1, in general, Section 15-6, which is failure to respond to summons or subpoena. And then 8.6.4, which is an ordinance amending in pertinent part the Durango Code of Ordinances, Chapter 24, Traffic and Vehicles, Article 4, Penalties and Procedures. And there are no requests for excused absences. And that's the end of the consent agenda.
Dave?
I thought you wanted to be excused later tonight.
Oh, do I have to be? Oh, yeah. Oh, can I add to be excused at 7 p.m. tonight as an excused absence? Sorry. Is that okay?
Yeah. I
Yes,
think it's
great.
fine. And
Mayor, I'd like to pull 8.6.1, please.
yes, that's great. And
Mayor, I've just got a small question on 8.3.1. I'm not sure it's worthy of pulling.
Okay.
The bond on the PAB, the private activity bond, I just wanted clarification if we roll multiple years or if this is just typically from 1 year to the next that we roll these bond allocations.
So let me pull it. I'll pull it. Just,
Okay.
I think any questions we have to pull. So let
Actually, small questions we can, but if
Oh.
we need to pull, yeah.
the pull.
I've been reviewing my rules.
Sorry.
No, you're
Good.
fine. You're
Okay,
fine.
good.
Let's
I-
go.
It is
Excuse me.
just from last year to this year, but we can roll them over multiple years or to 3 years.
And do we often roll in multiple years?
Yes, we've done it the past couple of years.
Great, thanks, done.
Great.
okay,
I'll make a motion to approve the consent agenda pulling 8.6.1.
Second.
do we get a discussion or roll call?
Mayor Yazzie,
Yes.
Mayor Pro Tem Woodruff,
Yes.
Councilor Gonzalez,
Yes.
Councilor Koso,
Yes.
and Councilor Buell.
Yes.
Mayor, I'd like to pull 8.6.1 from consideration and instead kick it to the Community Development Commission for their review and subsequent recommendation to council, please. So I guess that I need to make a motion to, okay,
To refer to committee.
yeah, I make a motion to refer, motion, agenda item 8.6.1 to the Community Development Commission.
Second.
Did we get a vote?
Mayor Pro Tem Woodruff,
Yes.
Councilor Buell,
Yes.
Mayor Yazzie,
Yes.
Councilor Koso,
Yes.
and Councilor Gonzalez.
Yes.
All right. Thank you. Just finding my spot again. So there are no public hearings listed tonight. And then for resolutions, since council wanted to adjust the order of the agenda, the first item would be 11.4, which is a resolution to amend the city's operating and capital budget.
Thank you, Mayor and Council. We have Gloria Platt, our Chief Financial Officer, online to walk us through this presentation.
Good evening, Mayor and Council. Again, we'll be walking you through the 2025 mid-year operating and capital budget amendment. And I believe that MC is going to be, yes, moving the slides. Thank you very much. So this slide shows that this amendment does align with our mission of providing outstanding service to the entire community and allocating resources to city services and contributing to a thriving and responsible community. So we have a few key areas in the presentation this evening that we'll go through. The first is the operational requests. These are organized by fund. Next, we will go by the capital requests. So these involve the capital projects. With both of these, staff is on hand. If council has any questions, we can definitely get an answer for you on those. After this, we do want to take some time just to walk through the timeline as we're in the process of our 2026 budget, so we can talk through the timeline of that as well. So first, we'll start with our operational amendments, starting with the general fund. So these amendments really are focusing on the operational needs, and these were identified since the original budget adoption. In the first section, we have community service funding and human services. These are contracts with local organizations for critical contracts that provide services to the city delivered to residents and visitors. And these really, we didn't have these contracts in place at the time of the adopted budget, and so that's why there's a need for the budget amendment. Next, we have personnel expenses. So this is personnel, benefits, uniforms, and organizational development. And this includes overtime, part-time salaries at Chapman Hill, overtime at HR, and some development costs for training and development as well. In the next section there, we have some non-recurring expenses. So these are really one-time expenses, not recurring year to year. So we are requesting to offset these expenses by using our general capital fund. These are made up of a new employee orientation video production. This is headed by HR, and this really will be implemented for onboarding and orientation, providing training and orientation of those new employees. And then we have a ADA compliance software services. So this is really so we can be in compliance. And our, city clerk's office has many documents that they're required to put through this and make them compliant with ADA. And then the last one there is the substation security installation. So these are new cameras and security there. And again, we're requesting to use general capital for this. That way we can avoid using our fund balance for operations in the general fund. So right under that, we have general capital fund amendments, and that includes those first three that we just talked about, and that $74,000 transfer. Right under that, we have Urban Renewal Authority sales tax. So this is a transfer for the Durango Renewal Partnership Fund. And this is really, we're calling it a cleanup because it's something that has been in the works. Finance has been working with the Durango Renewal Partnership on this for some time, working on the process. And so we really have a need for a true up. And going forward, this will be an operational expense that we will include in our operating budget each year. However, this true up is a one-time expense that we would like to pay from these funds that we are generally, transferring when we have money to utilize for one-time expenses, and then at times we have savings, or we have sometimes one-time revenues that we'll put there in that fund to utilize for such expenses as well. And the last item is the library program room divider replacement. So moving to other funds. And the top one is the building maintenance fund. We have a few expenses there, the Power Ed and M&B contract. This is for energy performance contract related expenses. And then we have a $50,000 IRA filing fees. So this is really something that we are expecting to receive a large rebate from the IRS. However, at this time, it is not a guarantee, but we're pretty sure we will get that back. And at the time of the budget development, this fee was not known yet. So we have to request this amendment in order to bring the budget to our estimated cost. Next, we have the water operating fund expenses. So we have, these are made up by a dark fiber lease, and then there's two of those there, 2 dark fiber leases, and then an overtime adjustment for unexpected cost of overtime for operations. Next is the trash and recycle fund. And the top part is revenues. So we are amending revenues for state grants. The first is the e-bike rebate for $40,000, and then the turf grass replacement program for $25,000. There are some expenses that do offset these revenues. So in that next section, you will see the same amount for the e-bike rebate program as an expense. And then the turf grass has an expense that's a little higher. Part of this is offset by the previous year. And so we're utilizing those funds that were received in the previous year that are now on fund balance. And then additionally, there were some increase to repairs and supplies that we're asking for an amendment there in the amount of $19,500. And then the 911 communication fund. This is a revenue for statewide internal portal authority grant for $340,000. Then we have in the transportation fund, we do have some grants there as well. So these are increases to revenue. We have the ozone season transit grant. We have the Federal Transit Administration grant. We have a state and a federal portion of that. We have the CDOT Office of Innovative Mobility Transportation Demand Management grant. Sorry, that was a long one. And then we have the Clean Transit Enterprise Planning Grant Award. So we're very excited to have several awards there that we're able to increase our revenues. And then we do have expenses as well. So we have the Clean Transit Enterprise Planning Project for $44,989. And then the microtransit expansion We also have one transit van that we're requesting to purchase in the amount of $118,190. And then a request for 2 license plate recognition systems. And these systems really do help us with enforcement around the city and locating scofflaw vehicles. And this is a need to replace the existing system that's out of date for service repairs and no longer functioning. There at the bottom, we have a request to add for 7 plow trucks. This is a very large number there, $4.2 million. These are trucks that I've been told have been on back order for a very long time. I believe even a number of years. So I'm sure that we're very happy to get this now that we're going to be able to receive those. Okay, next we have in the general fund grants fund, we have additionally we have a specialty court grant, the state grant to library, the BLM Wildlife Adapted Partnership Grant, the WUI Fire Mitigation Project, Bulletproof Vest Partnership, Speed and Distracted Driving, High Visibility Impaired Driving Enforcement, and we have both the federal and state portion there. We have our Smart Recruiting and Retention, Safer River Trails and Parks. And so these total $320,904 there. And then the Durango Area Tourism Office has provided the Prosperity Office with restricted funds as part of their dissolution. This funding is earmarked for specific use. This has been discussed at a prior council meeting, but this is to bring this forward to earmark it basically for those specific uses. These include marketing and strategic tourism initiatives and visitor center improvements and the cooperative marketing. Be happy to, if we want to stop and if you have any questions about any of those operating amendments before we get into the capital amendments, we can move forward.
Mark,
No.
do we need a motion for the questions?
Council, I'd like to move that we go ahead and take questions for the operating budget items and then the capital budgets after each presentation.
I'll second.
Mayor Pro Tem Woodruff,
Yes.
Mayor Yazzie, Councilor Gonzalez, Councilor Buell,
Yes.
and Councilor Koso.
Yes.
Okay, thank you. Can you also please introduce yourself again?
Yes, my name is Gloria Platt. I'm the Chief Financial Officer.
Okay, Gloria? Is that what?
Yes.
Okay, thank you, Gloria. This is Shirley Gonzalez. So just regarding some of these amendments, so are we, is there, I guess, city manager, you have the authority to make these amendments based on a certain percentage of the total of the department? So for example, I mean, some of these are related to, I mean, I'll just suggest this one, Durango area tourism, and there's some amendments here. So this is not originally approved in our budget. These are amendments that come later.
That is correct. Specifically on the Durango area tourism, when they dissolved, they gave us money. So it's revenue that we have to encumber and place in our budget.
Okay, so that was not a good example. So for example, just the general fund. So, I mean, is this what percentage of the general fund is it? And I guess you have the ability to make these adjustments without our approval? It's less than 20% or something?
No, that's why I'm bringing it to you. These adjustments do require council approval.
Okay, and I guess they're sufficiently budgeted, or is there sufficient funding to make all these changes?
Yes.
Okay, and are these typical? typical adjustments that we might see? Is there anything that is like, particularly, some are smaller, but this is a grant, so that's not a good example. But the state grant, well, that's also a grant. Okay, so the bulletproof vest, for example, that's not very much, but the idea is you have within your authority to make these adjustments.
I believe that one specifically in the bulletproof vest is a grant that we received. So again, it's new revenue coming into the city that we have to account for in our revenues because we were awarded the grant after the budget was approved. So we are accounting for the revenue or additional revenue we're receiving.
Okay, so just, I guess my questions are a little bit more general. So in preparation for the next budget, say we wanted to add something to the human services. At what point would those adjustments be made? I guess, is there capacity within the human budget, for example, to increase one of these?
We don't have a human services department.
Which was the first one that talked about
Human resources?
No, it was community services.
Oh, community services,
Yeah.
yes.
Contract.
Yeah, so for example, the detox center and the crossroads and the illegal encampment mitigation. So say, for example, the illegal encampment mitigation was more like 50,000.
Mhm.
How would that be adjusted? Is it already within the line item here? 10,000 is not so much, but if it were more, at what point do we have that originally in our budget versus making it an amendment?
Trying to.
Sorry.
I'm trying to prepare for our future budget is what I'm asking. That's why I'm asking some of these questions, because there seem to be like quite a lot of amendments. And so, for example, we have already within our budget to do an amendment of 10,000. But what if we felt like we wanted to have more?
We as in staff or we as in
No,
council?
we as in a council.
So you guys don't have a motion on the floor and I thought you were just going to ask questions about the presentation, and you do have a motion to do that, but you're kind of in no man's land procedurally if you start asking hypotheticals in debating.
Well, I'm trying to understand, these, for example, these amendments. If we wanted to say I did not support some of these amendments, at what point would I say I don't support this amendment for?
Once it's on the floor with a motion and a second, that's the time for debate where you would express your support or not support for it. My understanding was someone made a motion to allow questions during the presentation and they would be specific to the presentation. Again, it's your meeting. You can run it however you want, but under Robert's rules, you're not supposed to debate until you have a motion on the floor, and we don't have that yet.
Okay, so let me butt in right here. Okay, so since I'm the chair, what I hear you saying is that you want to understand where these amendments come from.
Well, or if, for example, if we
yes or
wanted to
no,
see-
yes or no.
No,
Okay.
that's not my question.
Then I don't understand what you're asking.
Okay, so the question is, what if I wanted to see more investment in illegal encampments?
Then during the budget, you would say you wanted that when we go to discuss the budget in the future.
Okay, so
Yeah.
all we're doing at this moment is just making, which, again, I'm not denying any, I'm trying to understand procedurally if I wanted to see a greater investment in something. We know that we're making amendments based on a budget that exists. So if we didn't want to make an amendment, we just wanted to increase the fund, at what point would one make that?
Budget.
But right now, what
October.
we're doing is we're doing a budget amendment because we had a projected budget earlier in the year. And basically a budget is a guesstimation of what we may accomplish. But right now, what we're trying to do is balance the books by
These are the unknowns.
the expenses that have been accrued with what we got in revenue and how we can balance the books here.
Okay, so I guess what my question, if I could, again, like, at what point do we need to make a budget increase and not an amendment? Is it when it's 20% more, when it's 30% more?
Yeah, Counselor, I got to say, my motion was all about specific to the operational budget that we were reviewing and questions regarding the line items that we had discussed here. So I would have to agree. I think we're pretty far afield of what
Okay,
the
thank
intent
you.
of the motion was.
Alrighty, Kip.
Gloria, a couple of things, acknowledging that you're relatively new to the position and appreciate you being on the firing line. Feel free to throw any of these other staff under the bus if you need to in the conversation. Also, there was meaningful grant revenue that was brought in by a wide variety of the departments, which should be acknowledged and really commended, and I appreciate that as part of this. So I'm just going to hit line items and make sure that I understand each of them. On the Power Ed and M&V contract explanation, you talked about it being an energy contract. And is there any more information than that that doesn't necessarily, I'm not understanding exactly what that's about.
Yes, and so I may have to rely on other departmental staff as well, but this is part of a energy performance contract and related expenses. And so the contract there is for $231,545. So again, this amount was unknown at the time that the budget was adopted, but we've been able to work through the organization of the contract and on this initiative and have those amounts now. And this is related also, I believe, to this Inflation Reduction Power Ed contract as well for it's that $50,000 for the filing fee. So those are both related to that energy performance contract or initiative.
Counselor, we do have Marty online, who this is actually in there, if that might help provide a little bit more detail on that item.
Please, Marty, and you can keep it short. I just wanted to try and understand a little bit more of what the energy performance contract entails.
Yeah, absolutely. And Gloria, yeah, I echo that. I don't fault you. This is a pretty complex project. But in a nutshell, the energy performance contract had three major components. It had the construction and implementation of the solar panels. So the installation of solar panels at 5 of our sites. It had an additional set of energy efficiency work, and then it has an ongoing energy services and monitoring and identification of additional energy conservation measures, and that's called the Power Ed program. The filing fee, Gloria's correct, that was associated with some of the financial support services we needed for filing for the IRS $1 million $83,000 rebate. It's a pretty complex process, and with $1 million rebate on the line, we wanted to make sure we got it right. So we hadn't budgeted for that at the beginning of the year. And then the Power Ed and M&V contract adjustment, essentially what that came down to is, as this was a multi-year project, carried over multiple years and had these different scopes. I can't speak for this would have been previous staff, but it's my understanding that there was just sort of a misunderstanding, or a piece of that hadn't been budgeted for just due to a misunderstanding. So it had been budgeted correctly in 23 and 24, and then in sort of the rollover process into 25, we identified that there was a component of that had there was just some confusion there. So that's that correction. Great. Sorry, that wasn't quicker, but it is a complicated one.
No, I appreciate it, and it rings some bells now that we started discussing it. So moving on, Gloria, I do not know what a dark fiber lease means. Can somebody educate me on that?
Yes, that's where we're buying fiber capacity in a line that's not quite operational. So we're buying capacity to increase our fiber into that line. So that's why they call it dark.
And this is fiber that is connected back to the water operating?
Yes.
Okay, the tanks and those things. Okay,
yes,
thank you very much. The e-bike rebate program, on here it says that there was revenue of 40,000 and the rebate program expenditure was 4,000, but is that intended to be 40,000?
Let me get back over here. Yes. So the e-bike rebate program. Yes, I'm sorry. That is
that's fine. Was there additional money from the lodger's discretionary fund that went to the e-bike program? Do I have that
Yes,
I would have to look that up.
Heidi's saying yes, so
Okay,
there was
okay.
discretionary funding from.
And I can get an answer after we're done with council. That'd be fine too.
Know how much it was, or?
I do, yeah.
Okay.
I did not understand the Urban Renewal Authority sales tax cleanup.
Can I make a motion to extend your time? Is that
Oh,
okay?
my apologies.
It's okay. It's a very light bell that rings. It's
I thought it
kind.
was just the ringing in my head.
No, it's a kind bell. It doesn't, they don't like buzz you off.
Yeah,
That's the
no,
next one.
Usually somebody hits me, so yes, please.
Okay, 2 minutes, 5 minutes.
On operations, yes.
Okay.
2 minutes and I'll get her done.
Okay, great. Can I extend council time to, how much is it originally? 4 or 5?
5.
To 7 minutes in total, please.
Second.
Aye. All in favor, aye?
Aye. Thank you. Appreciate that. The Urban Renewal Authority sales tax cleanup. And Gloria, you did describe this. I guess I don't. I know what a URA is, and I understand that this is an ongoing cleanup. I don't understand how the URA and the Durango Renewal Partnership Fund maybe interact.
So this is a portion of sales tax that will fund towards the TIF. And so there's really a process that was being worked out. There was also a lot of necessary reconciling in order to see, basically it's the area of the businesses in this area that pay sales tax. And so a method was needed to find in order to allocate those revenues, those specific revenues, and then a process in order to pay those into the for this partnership. And so this is really for 2 years. This will be ongoing and this will be budgeted. However, we have a need to true up for 2 years. And so basically what I was saying as the justification for utilizing the capital funds, we do put revenues there that are a one-time revenue. We also move funds there, to pay for specific projects, and then at times we have savings. So really we were wanting to utilize those funds so that we did not have to use our operational fund balances for this one-time true up.
I'm out of time. I got one other follow-up question with you, but I'll do by email. Thank you, Gloria. Appreciate that. Thank you, Mayor.
Jessica?
Yeah, I just have a quick question on the what's it called? Homeless encampments, the legal camp mitigation for $10,000. Did we get it approved, or was it approved in our county city meeting that we were going to use some of the old mitigation camp monies to mitigate camps? I know the county was pushing for that to mitigate camps at X-Rock to use some of our joint sales tax. Did we ever agree to that or no? Do you know?
Don't believe so.
Okay. I know it was a discussion. I know Commissioner Salka brought it up. I
think it was a discussion. I don't think there was no action that was taken on it.
Curious if we were going to use joint sales tax or not. Okay, thank you so much.
Dave?
Yes, thank you, Mayor. I had a question also on the fiber leases. That 39,584 and the 103,000, is that a yearly lease, or is that just paying for the 20-year and the 20-year? Is that paid in full?
Let me see if I have that.
We can promote Justin Carlton
Promote
if
Justin
need
if you
be.
don't mind.
Okay.
This one's getting a little out of my 2-time CIO range.
Justin, you should be able to unmute now.
I'm sorry about that. Could you repeat the question? I was writing an email to somebody else and missed that.
No worries. Hi, Justin. Mayor Pro Tem Woodruff here. I was curious, the dark fiber leases for the Ball Lane pump station as well as the Timberline tank, that 39,584 and the $103,000, is that paying the 20-year lease in full, or is that a yearly lease payment?
I believe it's the full lease in full. I need to double check check on that. And just for some clarification, our fiber network goes out to a certain area, and internet service providers provide what's called dark fiber on their infrastructure so that we can essentially extend our infrastructure over their network. And that's what this is to get to these farther satellite locations. And investing in construction and extending our own dark fiber is much more expensive than leasing.
Okay, great. That was going to be my second question is why are we leasing? But it makes more sense to kind of get rid of and mitigate the construction cost, then it makes sense to lease it. But yeah, I was wanting to see if that was $103,000 a year or if that was $103,000 for the full 20 years.
It's the full, I just got confirmation. It's the full lease, all 20 years.
Okay, great. Thanks for the clarification.
You bet.
I don't see any more raised hands, so would you continue, Gloria?
Okay, yes, thank you. Okay, so that brings us to the mid-year capital amendments. Our first amendment is a multi-funded project. And with all of these capital amendments, we'll present a slide that really just shows the fund balance analysis, showing the cost and how that affects that fund balance. And then we will turn it over to department staff to go through more details on the project. So again, this one is a multi-funded project. This is made up of water, sewer, and the 2015 parks and multimodal funds. And so you can see there the effect on fund balance and that there is sufficient funds to fund the increases in this project. It is an increase to the water fund of $91,977, to the sewer fund of $91,977, and then to the 2015 Parks and Multimodal Fund of $26,756. And I believe we have someone from the CIP project management team to talk further on the project.
Hi, folks. Evan Tyler, Capital Improvements Project Manager within Public Works. So I know we're all relatively intimately familiar with this project now. It's been going on for a long time. A little bit of the background, the utilities portion and the what I'll call the streets design has historically been treated as two separate projects. The streets design is moving right along. The utilities portion has been trailing. And so we are essentially asking for the increase in funding to continue pursuing this utilities design. We have funded the 30% design, and this extra 91,000 or roughly 92,000 from the water and sewer funds are to continue pursuing the utilities design. The 26,756 from the 2015 is to help with the design and relocation for fiber network that is on Main Avenue. Originally, we didn't think we were going to have to touch it, but unfortunately, because of the width of the sidewalks, helping to comply with ADA requirements, it puts the curb line right over city fiber networks, and that is why we're asking for the 26,000 to take this more holistic approach to make sure it's included in our design and get a better product for the final design. That's ultimately all I have for y'all, unless you have questions.
Okay, moving to our next, excuse me, capital amendment. This is for the 2005 Parks, Open Space and Trails Fund. And this amendment has no impact to the fund balance. It's really moving funds from one project to another in the amount of $401,577. So the increase that we're requesting is for the Durango Mesa Park infrastructure development, and the funds would be coming from the Durango Mesa Bike Park development. And I see that Scott McLean is up at the podium ready to give you some information on this.
So this is just transitioning the 401,577 from one fund that was Durango Mesa to the one for infrastructure. We had a couple last minute changes as we were doing budget a year ago, and the water line initially was in our infrastructure line item, made decision to do a separate line item for that. At the same time, we were changed the direction we were going. So Parks and Rec is paying for part of the water line. Public Works is paying for the upsize of what's beyond the 8-inch line is what we need for the park. So made a couple last minute changes, and this is what we had per our agreement. So we're short the funds there and just trying to backfill that.
Okay, excuse me. Next, we have a amendment for the 2019 Streets Fund, and this project has a $158,000 impact to the fund balance. So this was due to an emergency, and the expense has actually already been paid out, but it was paid from operation funds, and so we are asking for the amendment to pay for it from the 2019 sales tax fund. And again, the amount is $158,000, and there is sufficient fund balance for this project. And I do believe that Public Works staff is on hand if there are any questions regarding this specific project.
We can move on to the next.
Okay. The next amendment request is for the water fund, and this is this fund balance shows the impact that would this is also considering the previous multi-funded. We did have that downtown next steps that affected the water fund as well, and so that takes that into consideration. And this has an impact of $154,000, leaving an estimated ending fund balance of $3.67 million. And the project is the Ridges Basin Dam, and again, Public Works staff is on hand to help with the project details.
I'm Bob Lowry, the interim Public Works Director. Durango is a participant in the Animas La Plata Water Conservancy District, which essentially is the Lake Nighthorse Reservoir. We own water rights to about 24% of the supply. This amendment is to extend a 36-inch water line from the face of the dam out so it can be accessed for future use if any of the 4 parties who have water rights in the lake want to connect to them and actually begin to take water out of the reservoir.
Thank you, Bob. Okay, so I have a question. Okay, so we're going to come out 200 feet from Ridges Dam out, and we're going to go past the
Gilda, I'm gonna just real quick, just nicely. We're doing all the questions after the end
Okay. Oh,
or
we're not
whatever,
done
and
yet?
so at the end of this section.
Okay.
But if we want to change that, we can make an
No,
amendment
let's
or
go.
a
I thought
motion.
we
Are you
did
sure?
that.
Yeah. So then that way it's all fair for everybody. Okay, great. Sorry, thanks.
Okay, any others? Thank you.
Okay, then next is the airport capital projects, and we do have projects with a total impact of $701,000 on fund balance, leaving a combined estimated airport fund balance of $11.6 million. And these are made up of increases in the taxiway, electrical upgrades design for $200,000, revenue parking equipment replacement for $404,000, and ARFF Red to fluorine-free foam conversion for $97,000. And Tony is here to provide additional details.
Good evening, Council. Tony Vicari, Aviation Director at the Durango La Plata County Airport, with 3 proposed projects Gloria just mentioned. First 2 are new projects, and the last one is an additional appropriation. First project you see here is design on a Taxiway Alpha electrical upgrade project. Taxiway Alpha is the primary taxiway between our runway and parking aprons at the airport. This project would be a federal grant supported project with construction anticipated in 2026. The proposed funding request here for $200,000 would allow us to initiate the design in conjunction with the federal fiscal year cycle, which starts in October, hence why it's being brought forth as a mid-year adjustment. So we'll work through the design through the preponderance of this year, bid this over the winter, and proposed construction next year. Council will see the construction aspect of this project included in the 2026 proposed budget. Next project is for a revenue parking equipment replacement. Quite simply, this is a replacement to all the entry and exit gate infrastructure that collects revenue parking at the airport. This is parking, if you're not familiar, is the largest revenue driver for the airport in terms of our operating budget, and also a major customer service touch point. The existing parking equipment at the airport was installed in 2014. It's over 10 years of age, and while it remains serviceable, it's time to replace that equipment, upgrade, and take advantage of technological advances that have been made over the last decade. We're appropriating this now, again, so we can take advantage of construction cycles using the back half of 2025 to work through design and RFP development, bid this over the winter, and be ready to construct in the spring, which was an optimal time for us in terms of the sort of ebbs and flows of parking at the airport. And then the last project is our aircraft rescue firefighting Red 2 fluorine-free foam conversion. This was in the appropriated FY25 budget. Originally contemplated, as the title says, Red 2 is a vehicle. It's just a nickname for a fire truck, essentially, at the airport. After we have bid this, found and also come to further contemplation that we want to include a second fire truck in this, so that what this is doing basically is replacing firefighting foam. The existing firefighting foam is environmentally hazardous and is being replaced nationwide. And by removing that foam and replacing it with fluorine-free foam, we'll be basically doing a fell swoop by incorporating both vehicles. So this is an addition to add one more vehicle to the proposed scope for this project.
Okay, and the last item being requested in this amendment, this is really it's called a housekeeping item because it was presented to council back in February earlier this year. It was presented and discussed, and the motion was made to approve. However, it was left off of the resolution document, so maybe a Scrivener's error, but nevertheless, we want to bring it back before council to make sure we have it included in the attested resolution. So it was for moving funds from the Chapman Hill snowmelt heater and bleacher heater for $39,000 from that project to pay for the recreation center rooftop HVAC unit for $39,000. And that is the last of the amendments. And then the last piece of the presentation was really just to talk a little bit about the timeline for the 2026 budget while we are before you. And on the subject of budget, we wanted to bring these dates before you. So we do have on September 3rd, we are preparing to come before council to present the 2026 lodgers tax council determination proposals, so that council will have those projects to make their determination on. Next, on September 16th, council will be presented the 2016 CIP projects ahead of the budget retreat. That budget retreat will be scheduled for October 13th. I believe there has been email circulated on that to prepare council already. And this is definitely an important opportunity for in-depth discussions with the council regarding the budget in detail, the new proposals, and finalized budgetary priorities. And then on October 14th, we'll have a request for a public hearing. And so this is really a formal request to offer for public comments and community feedback on the proposed budget. And then next we will have the reconciliation portion. So anything that we have feedback from the council on from our budget retreat, and we council requests to make changes to that proposed budget, we will do that during reconciliation, and then that public hearing on November 4th for the proposed budget. On November 18th is the first reading of the budget. So this was the initial review and presentation. And then on December 2nd will be the budget adoption and mill levy certification. So in the 2026 lodgers tax determination portion, some additional steps here are on August 12th, the department submitted proposals to finance and legal for review. And then again, those will be presented to council. And council, we do ask for council to return those with their rankings on September 9th. So again, we will talk further on that on September 3rd. And then that budget retreat, of course, is when those proposal rankings will be presented to council as well. So at this time, I can take any further questions, but staff is recommending that the City Council by motion does approve the budget resolution for the 2025 mid-year budget adjustment for the City of Durango.
I'll make a motion to approve the budget resolution R-2025-0060 for 2025 mid-year budget adjustment for the City of Durango.
Second.
Okay, Bob, my question is about the 200-foot extension out of Lake Nighthorse. Okay, so that's going to be uncovered. They're going to put in the pipe. And at the end of the pipe, are we going to have the ability to connect off of that at a future time?
Yes, ma'am. When it's determined that we need to start drawing water from Lake Nighthorse, we will have the ability to connect to that 36-inch pipe and take 24.4% of the water based on whatever the allocation formulas in the state of drought we're in and so forth. But we will be able to access it when that pipe's
Okay,
complete.
great. So that's part A of that question. Part B is, can we do that as a City of Durango, or do we need to have permission by the other partners in the project?
I don't know the answer to that question, but I'll get it for you.
Okay, thank you.
There would be, I'm not necessarily sure about pulling the water, but the pipe to get through that does, I believe, would go through some tribal sensitive lands. So it may not be necessarily the water side of it, but getting our pipe there may require approval in a different manner sort for that.
All righty.
Thank you, Mayor. I don't have many questions, to the relief of everybody. But I did want to ask on the lodgers tax council determination for proposals. It seems to me like the timeline does not have input coming from council at any point. The input is all from staff recommendations, and then council's just ranking those recommendations. Is that accurate?
That is, yes. Last year, when we went through the budget process, the feedback we received from the council was that they didn't have the ability to rank it. It was just, here's what staff thought. This year, we're giving you the presentations and allowing the council to rank it. If, and this is where I say it's somewhat, if there is something that we didn't list that a council member would like to propose to place on it, we will definitely have that for the council computed, like at the end, at the retreat, not the end, but at the beginning of the retreat. Like, here are the projects that were ranked. Here are 4 other projects that were submitted by 4 different counselors that may want to be considered. And you could have that discussion there if you could see the prioritization on that side.
It just seems to me in that process that the council's suggestions would be coming in kind of after the fact, after the staff had already proposed something and researched it. It feels like those recommendations might be a little behind. I don't know if there's a resolution to that in regards to getting input as staff is developing those recommendations from council. I'm open to the discussion with council as well on this.
I just say maybe as a suggestion, go do this process one time like this with this change, and maybe we change it again. Because I was one of the counselors who was like, okay, wait, what if we wanted something different? Only because staff and Jose do such a good job of using our strategic plan to actually say, okay, this is where our deficit is in our budget, and this is where we need to supplement to meet the strategic goals of council. And normally the things they suggest are great. Maybe this year they won't be, I don't know, but
sure, yeah. Or level of greatness.
Well, exactly. And so I would just say maybe give that. I mean, I'm not saying that for sure. I don't agree with you, but I think like trust in them a little bit and like see what happens. And then if you hate it, let's redo it.
I agree with Jessica. I would like your input on what you think needs to happen, but after I went through the process, because I was really wanting to change up the budget, but then when I saw the process that they go through and how we meet our goals, it made more sense.
And follow-up question, I'm running out of my time, which I'm very aware of these days. It's the ability for council to defer allocating all of the lodger's tax discretionary fund so that we would have some in reserve for issues that might crop up in 2026. Is there a legit process, or could that be part of the selection?
Yes, that could be part of the selection and direction of the council.
Okay. Great. Thank you very much.
Tony, I had a couple questions if you don't mind, please. Mostly just operational. Do you foresee any sort of significant impact on the electrical upgrades for the taxiway kind of interfering at all with phase 1B of the terminal expansion?
Good question. Should be minimal impact. The taxiway is on the airfield as opposed to directly integrated with the terminal. We're pretty used to constructing on the taxiway. The challenge we have is we're a single taxiway airport in the same way that we're a single runway airport. And so when you close a portion of it to work on, even adjacent just the electrical light infrastructure, it requires we call back taxiing, which is basically pulling an aircraft out onto the runway to skirt the closed portion of the taxiway. So there will be some minor operational impacts on the airfield. However, that's something that we're routinely used to in terms of airfield operating environments. Anything critical would be done at night. And a lot of this work, since it is off the edge of the pavement, can be done while aircraft operations are uninterrupted. So long story short, I don't anticipate any significant operational impacts.
Awesome. Thank you. And then secondary question. The new parking equipment, what's the timeline for that being done? Is that, I mean, it's going to take like a week or 2 weeks, and then will there be any sort of impact on the guest experience and going in and out of that?
Great question. We don't know the exact timeline for what the cutover is. It's going to depend on who we select through an RFP process, what that new vendor looks like, how complicated their equipment might be, and how seamlessly we can integrate it with the existing infrastructure like power and fiber, what the demands are there. Initially, what we've talked about, both of our parking lots have redundancy. They have 2 entry gates and 2 exit gates. So the initial game plan most likely would be to essentially work on 1 lane at a time so that we have, enabled the new system while the old system is running, and then we can make a cutover and then enable the other lane. So ideally limiting any kind of downtime to be very short periods, ideally again, kind of overnight or outside of operating hours. There's a chance it doesn't come together quite that prettily. And we do have some challenges where we have to run manual transactions, but we've would plan for that accordingly.
Gotcha. I'm going to see people out there with the.
You got it. Maybe not quite that. Now it's the mobile Clover unit with a few quick presses of the button.
It's like Chick-fil-A, but better.
Yeah.
All right. Thank you, Tony.
Yeah.
Coming to us for council review. Fab has already discussed this and we'll have weighed in on all of it, I'm assuming. Yes.
Yes.
Yes. Great. And then another kind of silly question. Does that mean we're not getting a bleacher heater at Chapman? It's so cold and like 2/3 has never worked. And I'm like a cold hockey mom and I have 1 more year in that place.
My understanding is that Matt has made a repair to it that'll get us through for the time being. So that's where we're at now.
All right, Matt. I'll wear extra layers again.
Wear extra
Fine,
layers.
Fine.
And then you won't care because your kid will be out of hockey, so.
Yeah, I don't
Gotta
care. Let's
figure
just
it
keep
that
it broken forever after that. Just kidding.
Mayor, I do have a follow-up if I can. And I want to go back to Councilor Gonzalez's conversation about the budget retreat, just to make sure that I'm clear, and it touches on what she had addressed as well. At the budget retreat, we'll receive the draft budget at that point, and then if there are modifications that we're looking for, that's when the chess game starts. We start moving pieces around, or is it our recommendations come out of that retreat, staff goes back and says this will work or this won't work, and a little bit of help on what that budget retreat will do in regards to moving towards a final budget.
Combination of all of that.
Okay.
So we will try to get you, we will get you the budget usually 2 weeks before the budget retreat.
Okay.
To allow you to have time to review. At that budget retreat, we will go over the budget of how it's budgeted through. At that point, if there's things that you would want funded or you would see funding, there'd be a discussion with the council for you to openly talk about how you see the budget and where that goes through. Based on those conversations and input that we receive, we'll come back on reconciliation that would have and address some changes that we see that might need to be made or modified based on the extensive conversations that we have. And that could be retreat, that could be council meetings on that portion of it. But that is your chance to ask questions, wonder if you want to make a change, a modification. Have we thought about adding something on here? Based on that, we may decide if we need another meeting or another retreat. It just really depends on the conversations.
And so on the budget retreat on the 13th, we have from the 13th to the 4th of November. That's the reconciliation that you were just talking about. The public hearing at that point then allows public comment on the budget. No decision is made at that meeting. Is that correct?
That's correct. It's just an opportunity for them to talk on it.
So then again, we have another opportunity from the 4th of November to the 2nd of December to discuss budget, add in a half-day retreat, whatever we might want to do. Is that fair?
If that's the will of the council, yes.
Okay. That can be all be achieved within that timeline.
Yes.
Okay. Thank you.
All righty, on to the next one, 11.1. Oh, excuse me.
Yep, I could do a roll call. We have a motion and a second. And so for the roll call, Councilor Gonzalez. Councilor Koso.
Yes.
Mayor Yazzie. Councilor Buell.
Yes.
And Mayor Pro Tem Woodruff.
Yes.
Thank you.
Thank you. And the next item is going back to item 11.1, which is a resolution submitting to the registered electors of the city at a special election to be held on November 4th, 2025, a ballot issue and title concerning fire protection and emergency services, and in connection therewith authorizing an increase in city property taxes and amendments to the agreement with the Durango Fire Protection District. And I can give a quick introduction presentation on this, but oh, sure.
Yeah, that makes it a little easier there for you.
Fine, thank you.
Mayor and council, as you know, the Durango Fire Protection District has met with you in a joint meeting requesting a ballot initiative through the city in which they need to get your permission to be on that ballot since the city is not part of the district. We're a contracting agency, but not part of that. At the last council meeting, we did the IGA with the county notifying them that there would be a ballot measure. The Durango Fire Protection District, Chief Black is here and can answer questions during after a motion is made, has decided to do property tax as the method of funding for the Durango Fire Protection District, a property tax increase based on what I believe is two reasons. The first one being the less fluctuation of a property tax, the more stable revenue outcome that comes through that, where sales tax could be a little bit more up and down. And then secondly, that in 2028, when the fire district discussions come through and we have to find our way of going through that, if we do join the district, we would be on the same terms as everybody else with that property tax funding. So it would make that possible transition smoother. With that, this is the language that they have through their bond council for the council to approve. Again, for those that are listening, this isn't revenue from the city of Durango. While we would be collecting it, this revenue would be remitted directly to the Durango Fire Protection District for fire services. So just want to make sure as people understand that. And then after a motion, Chief Black can come up here and answer any questions y'all might have.
I'll make a motion to approve a resolution submitting to the registered electors of the city at a special election to be held on November 4th, 2025, a ballot issue and title concerning fire protection and emergency services, and in connection therewith authorizing an increase in city property taxes and amendments to the agreement with the Durango Fire Protection District.
Second.
Ready? Any discussion? Oh, Shirley?
Thank you. So I guess my question is, are counselors allowed to support or not this initiative?
So anytime there's an election question, you're prohibited from spending any city funds in support or in opposition of that. You are, however, allowed to pass a resolution of the council, either for or against an election ballot measure. And then, of course, as an individual counselor, you are allowed to do whatever you want because you're an American and a citizen and all those good things. So the simple answer to your question is yes, you as an individual counselor can take a position on a ballot measure. You just can't use any city funds or a city platform to promote it. And I will tell you that your title is not a platform. You are who you are. And you can certainly support or oppose something as a city councilor. You just can't use a city resource to do it.
Thank you.
Any other? Could we get a vote?
Thank you, Mayor. Councilor Koso,
Yes.
Councilor Buell,
Yes.
Mayor Pro Tem Woodruff,
Yes.
excuse me, Mayor Yazzie,
Yes.
and Councilor Gonzalez.
Hey, Chief Blake, thanks for all the
Yeah.
hard work these last few weeks. Really appreciate all the work that you guys and your teams are doing.
All right, and then the next item under resolutions is 11.2, which is a resolution to appoint applicants to various boards and commissions. And Mayor and Council, I know the interview teams have been meeting and interviewing with boards and commission applicants the past couple of weeks. I printed off a copy for each of you of the recommendations of the interview teams. And if you'd like, I can go down board by board. And if council wanted to make a motion to place those people on the board in the specific capacity, you can do so, and I'll go one by one.
Great.
Okay, I'll make a motion to appoint the applicants to the various boards that have been recommended by the Community Development Commission, Financial Advisory Board, or Historic Preservation Board of Ethics.
Sorry. Yeah.
Okay, so could you read the names there?
Yes, thank you. So for Community Development Commission, it was recommended Tor Stetson Lee, and then there's an upcoming alternate vacancy that was recommended for Sierra Foster.
Second. We need a motion?
Yeah, for all of them, but we can do one.
Mark, where are we at?
Do one by one.
Okay. So moved.
Second.
Okay, so do you want
And I could just do,
all of them and then,
okay, yeah, I'll keep them moving. I'll do a roll call real quick for CDC. Councilor Buell,
Yes.
Councilor Gonzalez, Councilor Koso,
Yes.
Mayor Pro Tem Woodruff,
Yes.
and Mayor Yazzie.
yes.
And then so for the next board, it's the Financial Advisory Board. And the recommendations were Emma Millar, Thomas Donnelly, Ethan Bates, and Stephanie Owings for the one alternate position.
I move to approve the Financial Advisory Board as presented.
I'll second.
Question, vote?
Yeah.
Oh,
Mayor, I just wanted to point out, we were missing an application for Emma Miller in the materials that were handed out. And so I also I don't want to get in the way of the approval process, but it does feel like we need to make sure that we're clear that we're getting applications, resumes, and letters from each of the candidates that's being proposed. So I just wanted to point that out.
Yeah. Do you want a little background on her? She's been on
It
the
would be
FAB.
great. Yeah.
She's been on the FAB board since the inception of the FAB board. She was on the Natural Lands board before that.
Okay.
She serves that voice very well and has had great success on them. Yeah, she was great.
Appreciate that.
Yeah, of
Thank you, Mayor.
course.
Okay, so Kip, your concern is the fact that all the materials weren't delivered at the same time
They just weren't in the packet.
for all the candidates for this board position.
Yeah, and I'll talk about a couple other process concerns at the tail end of all of our approvals here.
Alrighty, thank you for bringing
thank
that
you.
to our attention.
So I could do a roll call for FAB. Councilor Gonzalez. Yes. Mayor Yazzie.
Yes.
Mayor Pro Tem Woodruff.
Yes.
Councilor Buell.
Yes.
And Councilor Koso.
Yes.
All right, moving along. The Historic Preservation Board had one vacancy and the interview teams recommended Robert Bell.
Move to approve the Historic Preservation Board as presented.
Second.
Thank you, Mayor. Mayor Yazzie. Mayor Pro Tem Woodruff.
Yes.
Councilor Gonzalez. Councilor Koso.
Yes.
And Councilor Buell.
Yes.
And then lastly is the Board of Ethics, which has two vacancies. And it was recommended that Jay Egan change from his temporary appointment to a regular appointment and also to place Thomas Polich.
I'll make a motion to approve the Board of Ethics as read.
Second.
Discussion?
Councilor Koso, you may want to make your statements now, so that there's
what
a
I was
motion
just
on the
about
floor.
to
Okay,
say.
just want to make sure.
Thanks so much. So this has very little to do with the board that we're approving. It has more to do with the process. And again, I have only this opportunity for the 5 councilors for us to talk about a little bit. So there are a couple of things that I'd like to recommend for the next round. As a counselor that was not involved in the interviews, I would appreciate a synopsis of why we chose maybe the folks that we chose versus the folks that we didn't. Maybe that's not a versus, maybe that's just what's the highlights of the folks that we chose. But I had a hard time going through and picking out the defining reasons why we've chosen some of the people. And 2 of the boards in particular, and I'll talk about this, the CDC board and the FAB board, I think they take extra time and attention and need extra time and attention. The FAB board, from the breadth of what they deal with the city and the fact that these are potentially 3-year appointments, as well as the CDC as a quasi judicial board, I think it's got some import to it. And so would love to have a little bit more focus on those 2 boards that shares a little bit more information with the rest of council through the interview process. I don't know if we want to take my points one by one and talk about them, but I'm fine. If anybody's got a comment, I can pause there.
I mean, I'm up for like a little paragraph synopsis on why it would be super easy for me to have done it with the FAB board and the Board of Ethics that I was on. So not a big deal.
Okay.
Yeah, absolutely.
Great. Another recommendation, the emails came separate, applications came in one email, and then the folks that were nominated came in a second email almost 2 to 3 days later. I would just recommend that we pull all that together in one set package. That way we're not bouncing between multiple emails to try and figure this out. I would love to see consistent naming conventions in the files. First name, last name, application. Kip Koso, application. Kip Koso, resume. Kip Koso, letter. Whatever that is. But we don't have naming conventions in there. I know I'm getting into the weeds a little bit here, but this is a council-driven process, and we need to be the entity that's really suggesting what the process is on the next round. So, questions there? Okay, and then. The last question or point that I had to make is, again, reiterating back to the FAB. The FAB board to me is a bigger board, carries a lot more weight and impact with it, as does the CDC. I wanted to ask council what they thought about it being a full council that's in on the interviews for those 2 boards. It's not a lack of trust in any of the councilors that are doing it right now at all. It's just a matter that these boards seem to carry a lot more weight and impact. And I think I found myself wanting to dive in deeper with those 2 boards because they've just got more gravitas. So open to any discussion. I've only got 2 minutes, so you got to talk fast.
I guess I would Could we let maybe the city attorney weigh in just because it would require a special meeting in order for something like that to occur?
Yeah, I mean, the only thing that is on the table right now is the appointments. He certainly expressed some concerns about how the appointments came about this time and made some suggestions. But if you want to get into a debate or a discussion about the process, that should be a separate business item.
Is that a new business item?
It could be, sure.
I guess I need to know where it goes if I wanted to discuss it.
I mean, I think you said it perfectly earlier. This is a council-driven council board. You guys can work together in whatever format you choose to do it. And I will help you do that. So yeah, theoretically, to answer your question, under new business, you could propose a study session among the council to discuss your appointment process. And then you would announce that publicly and you would have that study session to figure those things out.
Okay, council, I'm fine doing that under new business, propose it for the next round, and I'll get my points
Right.
lined up.
It's not till like April, so
I know.
March, May, whatever that is. So we got time.
Understood.
We're good.
Yeah. Thank you.
I just had, oh, no, I didn't have anything.
So you still need to vote on the ethics board.
Yeah. Yeah.
Roll call, ethics?
For the Board of Ethics, the roll call, Mayor Pro Tem Woodruff. Yes. Councilor Buell,
Yes.
Mayor Yazzie,
Yes.
Councilor Koso,
Yes.
and Councilor Gonzalez.
Yes.
Okay.
I'll keep going then. So for item 11.3, a resolution of the City Council of the City of Durango expressing support for the public lands of Colorado.
I'd like to, oh,
Go ahead.
okay, it's just me, right? I can just say it. Okay. I'd like to make a motion to approve a resolution of the City Council of the City of Durango expressing support for the public lands of Colorado.
Second.
Discussion? Do we get a roll call?
Councilor Gonzalez,
Yes.
Councilor Koso,
Yes.
Mayor Yazzie,
Yes.
Councilor Buell,
Yes.
and Mayor Pro Tem Woodruff.
Yes.
All right, and then the last item under resolutions is a resolution approving draft revisions to the Financial Advisory Board bylaws for consideration.
Good evening, Madam Mayor and members of council. I'm Bob Bremer, Assistant City Manager, and I'll be presenting this evening. Up for consideration this evening are the draft revisions to the Financial Advisory Board bylaws. Following council direction, a couple staff meetings ago, Aaron Heider and myself have been working with the FAB board and the executive board to make recommendations to expanding the FAB's role and provide early and ongoing input in project planning and prioritization, and additional to the financial recommendations that FAB currently provides. The recommendations will allow the board to engage early in project discussions and provide input before the staff makes any final recommendations to City Council, offers community-focused feedback by reviewing public input and integrating it into the project planning considerations, enhance alignment between project scope, funding strategies, and community priorities, and support strategic decision-making by considering factors such as project timing, coordination, and long-term asset management. The expanded scope also creates additional public forum for residents to become informed and engaged in the city's planned projects and funding of the special taxed funds. The proposed draft revisions to the FAB bylaws are structured to reflect this expanding scope. They formally incorporate the board's role in the early stage of project planning, prioritization, and community engagement, ensuring the board's advisory function extends beyond the financial recommendations to a more comprehensive review of projects and their alignment with the overall voter-approved funding. In addition to that, we also considered or proposed with the FAB board and discussed a potential name change, and the FAB board came back with the recommendations to change the FAB board, Financial Advisory Board, to the Community Investment and Engagement Board.
Alrighty, thank you, Bob. You know, I'd like to make an amendment to that, and I would rather that we didn't change the FAB board name and leave it as it is.
Motion, which would need a second. And as I understand, what she's offering is the motion to approve the amended bylaws, but not change the name. So that would be the motion on the floor if it gets a second, to approve the bylaws as recommended, but not changing the name of the agency. To leave it as FAB instead of changing it to, what was it, Bob?
The Community Investment and Engagement Board.
If there's no second,
So I'll make a motion to approve a resolution approving draft revisions to the Financial Advisory Board bylaws for consideration.
Second.
right, discussion?
So,
Shirley?
okay, well, thank you. And I definitely want to just be very thankful for all the volunteers that serve on the Financial Advisory Board. It's such an important role, and we know that people are volunteering their time and spending lots of hours. I certainly support their work. I just don't support the way that we are continuing to bring so much to the Financial Advisory Board. I had made a motion, or rather a resolution to bring up additional advisory boards to go back to the Parks and Rec and some of the others. So I continue to maintain that we should have additional commissions. So I don't support this item. Thank you.
Yep.
First, I'd like to read a statement. While there's a real value in expanding the FAB board scope of duties, voter feedback during the most recent election and passage of the 2A bond clearly showed a desire for Parks, Recreation, and Open Space dedicated committee to guide the expenditure of related funds. Voters repeatedly shared that they wanted a wide variety of expertise in these specific areas to guide these specific expenditures. One or two, or possibly two individuals considered expert in the areas on the FAB board will not meet this expectation. This current change to the FAB board scope includes language that is in clear opposition to this goal, and I believe voter intentions are being circumvented here. So I wanted to propose my own motion to table this resolution and ask staff to develop potentially a dedicated Parks, Rec, and Open Lands subcommittee, and needed to check with the attorney on the ability for that to happen.
So procedurally, if you're moving to table, that takes precedence.
Okay.
Motion to table needs a second, and then a vote without discussion. I'm a little gray on whether you have discussion on that or not. I shouldn't have said that. If you want to discuss it, it's always better to discuss and not discuss, but usually on procedural things like that is limited discussion. So yeah, right now you have a motion and a second to table the motion that was on the floor, which is to adopt the bylaws. And I think you said table it till, did you give a date?
I wanted to table the no, I did not.
Okay, because usually when you table something, if you aren't specific, it's tabled to the very next meeting, or you can table it to a specific time or a future meeting.
I'm fine at the next meeting, as long as that's giving folks opportunity to do whatever needs to be done.
So without declaring a date, it would be tabled. The motion on the floor is to table this until the next regular meeting. There's been a motion and a second.
So with a motion and a second, we can do a roll call.
Unless anybody else wants.
Is there any discussion?
Yeah, so you're limiting the discussion just to tabling it, not the merits of the motion. So you don't discuss the motion on a motion to table, you just discuss whether or not you think it's a good idea to table it.
Because if it doesn't pass the table, then I still get to speak on this and Dave gets to speak on it because we've had our hand. Okay, just making sure.
I guess I wonder.
Ask your question.
I guess I want to know, like, what is the goal of tabling it? Is that going beyond the scope, Mark? No. Like what are you hoping to glean from tabling this conversation to the next meeting?
Yeah, my thought process was that the potential solution here is that we have a subcommittee underneath the FAB that is actually a subcommittee of expertise on Parks and Rec and open space, if that's possible. But I think that's more in keeping with the spirit, and yet also leaning into the existence of the FAB board and multiple parts of the outline within our materials suggested that the FAB board would be the expertise around Parks, Rec, and Recreation. Does that make sense? So it's the verbiage in there that I think will eliminate the possibility of having a separate Parks and Rec and Open Space board. And so I don't want to pass this until we've had further discussion about other opportunities to expand those boards.
Mark, a legal question. What sort of legal authority is needed to expand the scope of what Councilor Koso is looking for? Well, can that be done in a 2-week time period?
Look, these are your advisory boards, and how you develop them and how you govern them isn't really a legal question. If you think you have enough time to make the changes, then you have enough time to make the changes. And again, you know, you guys are discussing, what I heard him say is that he'd like to table this to explore other options before he's ready to vote for it. And that's a legitimate rationale to have a motion to table. But beyond that, you wouldn't want to go any deeper into it.
Great. Last question, Bob, and maybe you answered this. Did the FAB vote on these bylaws and like have like an opinion on acceptance of the bylaws as written, the new bylaws?
We discussed it at the last FAB meeting, and this was the recommendation that they came back with for us to present to council.
So they agreed and presented this to council?
Correct.
Okay, thank you.
All righty, I have a question, Mark. Okay, to address Councilor Koso's question about expanding the role of the FAB board to include a subcommittee of Park and Rec and possibly others, could that be done through a friendly amendment or an amendment to the current proposal?
Yes. He certainly had that option. He has an option. Now, again, all we're talking about is a motion to table. So yes, he could have chosen to offer an amendment, but he chose to.
So like withdraw his current motion to table and offer a friendly amendment to include that language, to include a subcommittee of Park and Rec and whatever. Is that a possibility?
Yes, under Robert's rules, that is permissible.
Mayor, I'd be reluctant because I think it's more complex than trying to craft it right now, right here. I think there's staff impact that I'd love to table this and get the feedback from staff before we necessarily pass anything.
All right, is there any more discussion questions that Mark has to answer legally?
So the motion on the floor is a motion to table to the next meeting, next regular meeting.
Could we get a roll call?
Councilor Buell?
No.
Councilor Gonzalez? Councilor Koso?
Yes.
Mayor Pro Tem Woodruff?
No.
And Mayor Yazzie?
Yes.
Motion is tabled until the
Yep, motion.
September 3rd meeting.
Yep. It passed 3-2, motion tabled.
So quick question, in the intervening time, to get some specificity on this, because I think it's kind of vague for staff, what needs to happen? Is this from the one-on-ones or we need something else?
I would say, I'm not exactly sure.
Okay.
A subcommittee of FAB, is that the FAB's appointing the subcommittee? Is that the council that's appointing the subcommittee? There's a lot of realms of what that is.
Okay.
So I don't know. I really don't know how to answer that question in 2 weeks.
And that's not on the floor. I mean, when you table something, that cuts off all discussion. And once the voters had it, that's the whole point of the motion to table, is you don't discuss it again until the next meeting. If you want to do something under new business to move it forward, that's where you would do it. Okay.
Thank you.
Bye, Jessica.
And the next section is section 12, consideration of ordinances. And first we have 12.1, which is an ordinance authorizing a facility lease with Agile Space Industries, Inc. at 820 Airport Road.
Good evening, Council. Tony Vicari, Aviation Director at the Durango La Plata County Airport, here to present a proposed ordinance that would authorize the facility lease with Agile Space Industries at 820 Airport Road, which is an airport-owned parcel. Jumping into just a little bit of background here, the airport acquired a 12.5-acre parcel located at 820 Airport Road in 2019. That parcel includes 2 commercial buildings. The southern building is office space. The northern building is mixed-use warehouse and office. Agile Space Industries is the current lessee of the northern commercial building under a 5-year commercial lease. They began that occupancy in 2022, and the southern commercial building is currently vacant. Negotiations with Agile have resulted in the proposed lease that's being presented today. This would essentially rescind their existing lease and execute a new 5-year lease with Agile Space that incorporates both commercial buildings, totaling just over 40,000 square feet of total facility space, as well as parking and outdoor space. Here you can see a map of the location. These buildings are located just north of the terminal complex. You see them on your left when you're entering into the airport on Airport Road off of Highway 172. And then a slightly more detailed view would show the proposed lease premise and the lease we're considering this evening. As mentioned earlier, this includes 2 commercial buildings shown in the yellow there, as well as the associated parking and supporting land adjacent to these. In terms of the proposed lease terms, this would consist of just north of 40,000 square feet of buildings, and then the parking and supporting land you can see there. Allowed use of the premise includes the design, manufacture, assembly, and testing of in-space propulsion systems, which is the business model of Agile Space Industries. The lease incorporates a 5-year base term starting here in 2025, running through 2030. It is a triple net lease, which is a standard commercial lease where the lessee or Agile Space is responsible for the possessory interest, property taxes, utility costs, and operating and maintenance expenses. And the lessor, the airport, is responsible for capital improvements and property insurance coverage. And we do anticipate, if approved, that the lease or the occupancy rather by Agile Space would occur this fall. From just a little more background on regulatory and legal side, the airport layout plan, which is the guiding document for the airport and its development, does show this area, the entirety of the parcel, ultimately being developed for aeronautical use, primarily terminal support facilities like vehicle parking. However, the development of that particular parcel is greater than 5 years out on our capital plan, indicating we don't anticipate building for aeronautical purposes on that parcel within the next 5 years. Subsequently, it makes sense for us to make beneficial use of the property and gain the rent revenue associated with these facilities in the interim. The Airport Advisory Commission did review this proposed lease agreement and unanimously recommended its approval in July, and no public comments were provided. And the City Attorney's Office has also reviewed the proposed lease agreement. From a fiscal impact, you can see the proposed facility rent for the 5 years of the proposed lease, starting just north of $200,000 and increasing through the full term, totaling a little over $1.1 million in overall revenue to the airport operating fund through the 5-year period of the lease. And in terms of benefits to the airport, this provides stable facility rent income that we just reviewed. And importantly, it diversifies the revenue sources of the airport. The airport, as you would expect, is somewhat reliant on aeronautical revenue streams, meaning that we are somewhat subject to the volatilities of aeronautical demand, i.e. if there's a significant recession and we see a downturn in passenger traffic, the airport's revenue sources could potentially be threatened or reduced in step. Diversifying away from towards non-aeronautical revenue, which this is a source of that's not impacted by those same forces, provides a little more stable operating environment in terms of the revenue picture at the airport. Additionally, leasing the currently vacant building allows us to eliminate operations and maintenance costs that are associated with that vacant building. And we additionally influence regional economic impact through the long-term development of aerospace testing and manufacturing by Agile Space here in Southwest Colorado. With that, here you can see a recommended motion.
Move to approve an ordinance authorizing facility lease with Agile Space Industries Incorporated at 820 Airport Road.
Second.
Get a vote?
Thank you, Mayor. Councilor Gonzalez? Yes. Mayor Yazzie?
Yes.
Mayor Pro Tem Woodruff?
Yes.
and Counselor Koso.
Yes. Thank you.
Thank you. And the next item is 12.2, which is an ordinance authorizing the issuance of sales and use tax revenue bonds, Series 2025, as approved by the voters at the April election.
Good evening, good evening, Mayor, Council. My name is Heidi Wise for representing the Finance Department. I'm just here to introduce Maddie Prodanovich, our from Hilltop Securities, our financial advisor.
Maddie, you should be able to unmute now.
Perfect. Great. Can you all hear me okay?
Yes, we can.
Okay, great. Thank you. Thank you all this evening for allowing me to present an overview of the authorizing ordinance that you're considering this evening on first reading for the city's issuance of sales and use tax revenue bonds. Some of this should hopefully sound a little familiar since it is related to the election that was authorized in April, but I am going to do a little bit of a refresher for those that might have forgotten or those watching that were not familiar with that process. So you can move on to the next slide. I'll talk a little bit about that election process. So earlier this year, the City Council referred a measure to the ballot, Measure 2A, in April of 2025 that was authorized by voters, which did two key things. Well, three actually. It extended the existing half-cent sales and use tax that was previously authorized through December 31st of 2056. It also expanded the use for a half of the half cent, which is the portion that we're really focused on this evening, to allow it to be utilized for capital improvements. And then it also authorized the issuance of up to $61 million of sales and use tax revenue bonds payable from that extended portion of the sales tax and other legally available revenues of the city. And the primary purpose of that debt authorization was to fund the restoration of the historic Durango High School building and adjacent facilities for use as the new City Hall and police facility. I know this has been a long time in the works for the community there, so we're happy to see that get passed. So in planning for that election, and really this began almost a year ago, it was understood that that 1/2 of the 0.5% essentially sales tax that was extended would likely not be sufficient in the early years to fully cover debt service on the $61 million of debt. And so the thought at the time was that other available city sources would essentially buffer that annual payment. As a result, that ballot question was written in a way that it allows the city to pledge other available revenues that are legally allowable to fund debt service and then provide sufficient coverage for those bonds to be able to market it to investors for sale. So moving on to the next slide, what we ended up coming with from a pledged revenue perspective is obviously including that half of the half-cent sales and use tax that was extended and the city's general 2% sales and use tax revenues. This structure does a couple things. One, it provides the strongest coverage and therefore likely the strongest credit rating and lowest borrowing costs for the city on this obligation. It also provides the greatest amount of flexibility for the city, both for the issuance of these bonds as well as potential future initiatives if there are any. And provide sufficient revenues to actually make the debt service payments on the bonds from legally available sources. So the one thing I do want to note is that the authorizing documents have what's called an additional bonds test. So for sales and use tax bonds, in order for an entity to be able to issue additional bonds that are pledged from those same revenues in the future, there are certain tests that have to be made, mostly that's related to the amount of revenue relative
now.
To the anticipated debt service.
Thank you.
And so Sorry. Okay, so in this instance, there will be an additional bonds test of 2 times, which essentially means that if the city were to want to issue bonds in the future supported from these revenues, the amount of revenue collected would need to be at least 2 times those anticipated debt service payments. That is not an issue sitting here today. We're anticipating coverage well over 5 or 6 times here. But I did just want to note that just for clarification, we also are providing some flexibility within that documentation that would allow the city to, in the future, be able to sort of parse out pledges from each of those individual underlying sales taxes. Again, the goal here was to provide sort of the strongest coverage opportunity with meaning the lowest borrowing cost for these bonds, while also providing flexibility for the city in the future, because these bonds are going to be outstanding for 30 years, to make sure that we're not limiting what your opportunities may be in the future, should you choose to go back to the voters to authorize additional debt. So moving on to the ordinance itself. So the authorized ordinance is a fairly lengthy document, but the primary goal there is to authorize the issuance of the 2025 bonds within certain parameters, which I'll touch on in a minute. But there's also some related documents that are approved as to form, and those are noted here on the slide. So the paying agent agreement, the bond purchase agreement, and the preliminary official statement. The paying agent agreement is essentially an agreement with a bank whereby the city actually makes the payments for debt service to them, and they help manage payments out to the multiple investors that will likely end up buying these bonds. The bond purchase agreement is the agreement between the city and the underwriter, and the underwriter is the entity that is purchasing the bonds from the city and then selling those to investors. And then the preliminary official statement is, you can think of it like a prospectus. It's the primary disclosure document that is used in the marketing of these bonds to investors, which will include a lot of information about the pledged revenue, so the city's sales tax revenues, as well as other information, financial statistics about the city. The paying agent and bond purchase agreement are subject to change until final pricing, which we'll note on a later slide is not anticipated to occur until October. The preliminary official statement will very much change over the next several weeks as we update that and get that prepared to be able to market to those investors. A bit of the details here, since the ordinance is pretty lengthy, I tried to call out some sections, and I will note Kim Crawford from Butler Snows, the city's bond counsel, is also on if there's more legal focused questions on the ordinance. But I tried to call out some sections here that I think are beneficial. The first is the parameters, which I'll talk about in a moment, and then the delegation of authority. And so what this ordinance does, we call it a parameters ordinance, and it essentially provides the authorization for the city to issue the bonds and delegate the authority to enter into those agreements to the city manager or the chief financial officer, so long as certain conditions are met. So the parameters are essentially creating a box within which we need to be able to issue the bonds, and that has to do with annual payments, total repayment amounts, interest rates, par amount, and final term, which you'll note there in the bottom of this slide. And so those first 2 pieces there that I note on the top, I think are pretty important, because the parameters are obviously our guiding path essentially to be able to issue the bonds. And then that delegation of authority is what allows us to actually go forward and issue the bonds in the future. That back in the old days, it used to actually go back to councils to approve on an emergency meeting the evening of pricing, and we've luckily moved away from that for scheduling purposes. It also describes the use of the proceeds of the bonds for this project. It establishes some accounts for payments of debt service, and then it defines the authority of the city to issue those additional bonds under the tests that I mentioned on one of the prior slides. The financial parameters that you'll note in the ordinance, so primarily that maximum principal amount of $61 million, the maximum annual debt service, so what is paid in a given year, is of the $4,165,000, and then the total repayment, so total principal and interest on the bonds of $123 million. Those are actually guided by the parameters that were in the ballot question that was approved by voters in April. So those we have not changed at all, and we are legally required to be able to fit within those parameters to validly issue the bonds under the original authorization. So moving into sort of the next steps here, obviously, we're here speaking with you all for first reading of the ordinance, which will then come back subject to approval this evening for second reading on September 3rd. We will have a rating call. We're anticipating having that rating call with Standard & Poor's or S&P. And then we will move through the process of getting all the documentation finalized to be able to go and market these bonds. Again, we're targeting a pricing date on October 8th, sitting here today. I will note that that is not set in stone. We can move that around. Obviously, for those that have been paying attention to the financial markets over the last several months, there have been some periods of volatility. We have luckily been in a fairly stable environment over the last month or so, if anything, with declining interest rates. But if we were to reach a point where we did not feel it was advantageous for the city to move forward with pricing at that time, we can certainly hit pause and wait until market volatility settles down. I will note one piece of the timeline that's not represented here because it already occurred, is that the city did conduct a small RFP process to hire an underwriter for this transaction. That was started back in May and concluded last month. The city received responses from 5 very qualified firms, and actually ended up selecting 2 firms. So Piper Sandler and UMB Bank will be serving as underwriters for this transaction, and they are in the process of getting up to speed and engaged as we begin starting through the documentation process. And then finally, just to give you all a sense of where we are, although I will note these were done back in, as you can see, July 25th. It's about a month ago, and rates have moved a little bit, but actually in your favor, rates have come down a bit. But so you'll see here, we are within the repayment parameters as well as the interest cost parameter there that I noted on one of the prior slides. But sitting here today, the interest rates, because they've gone down, that net interest cost number that you see there on the slide about in the middle at 5.127% has actually gone down about 10 basis points. Right now, sitting here today, we're about 5.019%, which is great. So we hope that obviously continues. That does reduce the annual payment and total repayment amounts slightly. That annual payment amount goes down by about $40,000. And total repayment goes down by about 1.3 million. I will just note of the annual payment amount noted there of the 4.08 million, based on the city's anticipated collections from that half sales tax that was approved at the election to support repayment of these bonds. There's approximately $950,000 or so that would essentially need to come from that 2% sales tax beginning in year 1. Obviously, the thought process behind that was as the sales tax base grows and the collections from that half-cent sales tax continue to grow as well, then there's less of a reliance on the 2% sales tax or general city funds to be able to cover debt service. Final financing results are subject to change, obviously, until that pricing date. We also don't currently have the rating for these bonds. We are anticipating, just based on coverage and underlying financials of the city, a strong rating, likely in that low AA category. But that obviously will also dictate the interest rate we anticipate getting on these bonds. And then I do just want to note, because this comes up sometimes, there will be a call date, so an opportunity for the city to refinance these bonds beginning in 2035. So municipal bonds are typically issued with a 10-year call option. So unlike your house with a mortgage where you can refinance at any point in time, municipal bonds are typically locked out for that first year 10-year period to refinance on a tax-exempt basis. But anytime after that 10-year mark is reached, the city would be able to refinance or prepay the outstanding obligation with available funds or the issuance of refunding bonds to lower the interest rate and therefore lower the payment. I think that's it for me, and I will pause for process and happy to answer any questions that you may have.
I'd like to make a motion that we consider an ordinance authorizing the issuance of sales and use tax revenue bonds series 2025 as approved by the voters at the April election to be moved to final reading at the regular city council meeting on September 3rd, 2025.
Second.
Oh, yeah. Thanks for the presentation. If we can go a couple of slides back, and my apologies, this presentation wasn't in my packet, so I'm a little lost. Sorry, Heidi, a couple more. I lost it. I'm sorry, took you too far back. So just maybe the parameters of this need a little slower explanation for me. The passage of 2A, the passage of our bond authorized us to issue bonds for the 61 million. The 2%, sorry.
Yes, that's correct.
Yes. So the 2% that we're talking about is coming in off of sales taxes, and it allows us to exceed the cost of this project because we've got those revenues, additional revenues to take bonds out on.
So the original plan for that 61 million, I think, and honestly, I think this goes back to probably last summer, candidly. I think we came and gave some presentations on what the sales tax rate would need to be if the city wanted to plan to cover the full debt service payment of that 61 million from the extended or increased sales tax that was eventually authorized at the election. At the time, I think it was decided to keep the sales tax rate the same and just repurpose. So the half of the half-cent that's going towards repayment covers the vast majority of that debt service payment. However, it doesn't cover the full debt service due on that $61 million, which is why the ballot question was written to provide flexibility to utilize other available city funds for debt service payments, essentially. And so what we have to do in order to issue the bonds and provide that certainty to investors is determine what revenues actually are pledged. So that half and the half-cent that was approved is pledged, as well as the city's general 2% sales tax, to allow us to fully fund that $61 million debt service authorization.
Great, thank you. I know you said that before. I appreciate the slow walking me through that.
Of course.
The construction cost of City Hall, if it exceeds 61 million, we have to find that somewhere else.
Exactly.
And
Yes, and I believe I don't know if Gloria or others have. My recollection is that I know there's some plans for selling some assets, I believe, of the city to help cover some of those costs, as well as some other items. But yes, we are essentially capped out on the bond side at 61 million.
I think we're going through some couch cushions and those things as well. So
Yes.
if the price tag exceeds the 61 million, we sell a couple of assets. I mean, we've talked in vague terms about other ways to raise the money. The 2 times consideration for the obligated revenues, I believe you said we could go up to, we've got room to go up to 5 times or something. So this was not that big of an issue. Is that correct?
Yes. Yeah. So the anticipated coverage sitting here today from all of the pledged revenues is well over 5 times. So yes, there's certainly capacity if you needed to issue additional bonds under these repayment sources, obviously subject to voter approval.
Got it. So the extra revenue could come from addition, we're doing 2% right now, but we could go up to 3 or 4% if voters approved to cover any additional costs.
Yes, and I think, I don't want to obviously speak for the finance folks, but budgetarily, you would need to sort of figure out accommodating the payment, but you could actually accommodate an additional payment under your existing sales tax collections if you needed to, without asking for the increase. That obviously just may offset, what those funds would otherwise be used for budgetarily. But yes, you certainly could do that. You can either go back and ask for additional borrowing capacity or ask to increase a tax rate to help cover additional costs.
Okay, great. Thank you very much. I'm running out of time, so I'll just go ahead and move on.
Hi, thank you. Part of that presentation, and thank you again for that, said that we don't have a current credit rating. We've taken out bonds previously, I assume, and does that mean that we're too far beyond from when we last took out a bond to still receive a credit rating?
If I recall correctly, it's because it's expired. Your bond rating is only valid for a certain amount of time before you get it renewed. And it's been that long since we've taken out new debt. I believe, if that's correct, right, Maddie?
Correct, yes. And your most recent obligations, actually, the existing sales tax bonds you had outstanding were done via loan, basically with a bank, and those actually did not require credit rating. So yes, Jose, that's right. That basically by doing that refinancing, there no longer was a public issuance for a credit rating to rate, and so the rating since expired.
Okay, thank you. And then, pardon me if you've already covered this, but is there any way for us to like lock in like a lower rate if we see all of a sudden a lower rate come our way and without any sort of market adjustments? Could we just like, oh yeah, we better lock that in now like a residential mortgage rate, or is this completely different?
No, unfortunately not. We can do things what are called like forward deliveries and things where you are locking in rates well in advance, but given our current timeline, that's really not beneficial for you all. I think our primary goal is to just get documentation and the process in place as quickly as possible so that we can move, and be relatively nimble so that as rates are changing, we can move quickly if they are moving in your favor.
Okay, great. Thank you.
Gilda Yaza here. Thank you for that presentation. Could we also get that presentation emailed to us? Because I didn't receive that presentation in my agenda packet also.
Yes.
Okay, so our annual payment's going to be 4.08 million per year according to what you just presented. Now, where does the what is almost a mil, what the almost $1 million that we were going to also kick in, is that still valid?
That's what was making that 4.808 million. So the difference, which I think was around 945,000, was going to come from our general fund.
Okay, so our total payment, including what we were going to kick in, is still at 4.08 million. Okay.
Estimated, yes.
Estimated.
At this interest rate.
At this
Okay.
interest
That
rate.
she's listed here, so it will probably be.
And that includes when we were conservative of trying to make this arrangement, we had thought that we would have to pay, 900 and something thousand. So the final cost is going to be 4.08 at this point.
That's what they're estimating. And then that the funding in the general fund could fluctuate down or up depending on sales tax. So if we continue to have strong sales tax and it goes over projections, which these are very conservative, you would see your general fund quite possibly not having to come up with the whole 948,000. It may come down a little bit more, just depending on how that works in the future.
All righty, thank you. Any other questions?
Roll call.
Okay, roll call. Oh.
Thank you, Mayor. For the roll call, excuse me, Mayor Yazzie,
Yes.
Mayor Pro Tem Woodruff,
Yes.
Councilor Gonzalez, and Councilor Koso.
Yes.
All right, moving along is item 13, which is public comment on city matters not under consideration for tonight.
Public comment is encouraged on city-related matters even if they are not set for consideration by the council on tonight's agenda. Please begin your comments by stating your city-related topic, your full name, and if you are a resident of the city of Durango. Make your comments directly to the council. Do not expect a response from the council or staff. Comments are limited to 3 minutes per person unless modified by council. Unused time is not transferable to other speakers. Comments must be specific to city matters. Profanity, hate speech, personally derogatory remarks, or other speech that is disruptive to the meeting will be ruled out of order by the chair, and any remaining time will be forfeited by the speaker. Exceeding the time limit infringes on the rights of others and is out of order. Only a majority vote of the council can modify time limits. Please note, you must sign up prior to the mayor calling the item on the agenda. Signing up after the item is called will result in your name not being called to speak.
And we had one individual sign up, Emily Frogen.
Hi, my name is Emily Frogen. I'm a resident of Durango, and I'm here to encourage you all to please either hold a study session or a public hearing on meeting Durango's greenhouse gas emission reduction goals. Hopefully, when this occurs, you can hear from someone else other than me, since there'll be a comment time, but you get me today. A little over 2 weeks ago, Durango's Climate Study Group sent a letter to you all with over 70 signers and 18 businesses who all want to see council take action on climate. Our letter points out 2 priorities. The first is to elevate the authority of the Sustainability Department in Durango, and the second is to increase the funding for the Sustainability Department. We also outlined a way to increase the funding, which is to shift the sustainability fee that is on the utility bill that is currently a flat fee to a percentage-based fee. In years past, we've also suggested using the LPA franchise fee for funding this program, since it's directly related to our greenhouse gas emissions, or increasing the overall general budget, which you all will be talking about in October. Finally, I think an overall evaluation and recommitment to climate goals by this council is necessary to make Durango a leader in fighting climate change. We are in a climate emergency and our community is not immune. In our own backyard, the Four Corners power plant is no longer closing in 2031 and will now continue to pollute our air. La Plata County is at the center of the global methane hotspot, and all this is happening while the Stoner Mesa fire is worsening air quality in town. More than ever, Durango needs to do more to protect our citizens, current and future, for climate change. And I'm asking you to please take action under new business tonight to create either a study session, a public hearing, or whatever other next step you all think is best. Thank you.
And then, excuse me, moving on to item 14, other new business. Excuse me, we have item 14.1, which is a resolution directing the Financial Advisory Board to be presented the proposed river surfway feasibility study and for them to consider that project as they make their recommendations for the 2026 parks projects.
Council, yeah, do I need to make a motion here or just I can just kind of give a little stump speech?
Yeah, so
Okay.
you just give the rationale for placing this on the.
Gotcha. Yeah, I just wanted to maybe have the animus river surfers to go before the process that we have in place to go before the FAB, to just kind of propose to them potentially what the 2026 parks projects could look like and if they could be considered.
So you'd move to put the resolution in there.
So I move to create a resolution directing the Financial Advisory Board to be presented with a proposed river surfway feasibility study and for them to consider the project as they make their recommendations to the 2026 parks projects.
Second.
Mayor Pro Tem Woodruff,
Yes.
Mayor Yazzie,
No.
Councilor Koso,
Yes.
and Councilor Gonzalez.
Are there any other new business items?
Yes, Mayor, and if everybody can bear with me, I had to do some scrambling in the meeting, so I've got several new business items I'd like to propose. First off, I'd like to propose a public hearing around revising the current flat $2.30 per month sustainability fee to a 1.5% fee based on users' total utility bills. Justification behind this is that it would provide increased funding for sustainability department to improve our greenhouse gas efforts and reach 2030 goals, financial incentive to reduce water consumption in our city, and improve equitability in billing by charging higher use customers more than low use customers. I just keep rolling to the next items. Okay. I would like to propose a study session for council, staff attendance only, not reporting, around the development of a Parks, Rec, and Open Space Subcommittee in our October 7th meeting. So my intent there is a study session that's just a council conversation.
And what date was that on?
October 7th.
Okay.
I would like to propose a study session for ADU current state of adherence to legal obligations and options for stricter adherence. This specifically would address what percentage of property owners actually reside on property for all ADUs that are required to be there. Are all required 2-year affidavits currently being gathered and notarized and on file? And finally, an additional piece around grandfathered ADUs built before 2014, both property affidavits on file around age and safety attestation, and then also what options exist to bring these units into compliance with all other ADU requirements. And I'm happy to help the verbiage here.
Councilor Coso, the last one, the ADU state of adherence, is that a study session as well?
Yes, it's a study session, correct. Looking for staff feedback.
Okay, so one question here. So you're talking about investigating them to see that they're in compliance with our laws?
We had rules and regulations that were passed that the ADUs needed to follow when ADU lot sizes were the determining factor. I don't have as much around eliminating minimum lot sizes, but I do believe we need to hear what adherence to the rules and regulations is right now.
All right.
Councilor Coso, on your first one, you
Yes.
requested a public hearing.
I did request a public hearing, so it's different than the usual study session. My goal is to make sure that
I just was.
Okay.
Wanted to
Sounds
make sure
good.
I heard you correctly.
Yep.
Is there council discussion during a public hearing? Or is it just public hearing that we take input from the constituents?
You can you don't vote at a public hearing.
Right.
But you can interact with the public, and it's the public's opportunity to interact with you on that item.
Okay, thank you.
My understanding is these 3 items will come back under new business for a vote at the next meeting.
Yeah. Except there's more. Sorry, I lost my place. Hang on.
4.
Okay, I would like to propose a study session for process improvement around appointment of committee members. So I discussed this earlier in the meeting. This would include a synopsis of findings being added to the materials that are produced, packaging of applications, letters, and resumes in one delivery with clear labeling for files, and a discussion amongst council, among full participation by council in the FAB and the CD selection process. I'll leave anything else. Thank you very much.
Alrighty.
Can I ask a question? And I think it's for Mark. Councilor Coso's the last request that he made. Why is that not procedural? I mean, why cannot be done administratively? Why does that have to be voted on? If he's asking for emails to come together in one packet, why is that not an administrative action?
The last question about a study session to improve the process for advisory boards.
Well, specifically about the way we receive packets.
So one of my points was package applications, letters and resumes in one delivery with a clear labeling for files. And I think you're just asking, why is that just not a automatic?
That's correct.
I mean,
Like, it's because he put it on an agenda item.
Yeah, probably.
Like, we don't know that this was coming. He just placed it as part of his agenda item. So that's an administrative action. It's just the method used doesn't really allow us to say that's an administrative item. We can't take care of it. It's this part is you put your item and you say what you want to talk and we place it to another item. But I have had a conversation with Councilor Coso earlier about that and said there are some staff improvements, but I do think what he's looking for is probably a bigger discussion regarding a lot of different topics with regards to this appointments. And I think he's just trying to do a catch-all. And I don't mean to speak for
No,
you,
you are
Councilor Coso,
entirely
but you
correct.
just want to make sure that you're catching everything that you would like to be able to discuss if you choose.
Correct. Yeah.
and as that moves through the process, sounds like we very well may tell you administratively, we can just start doing that.
So it drops out of the conversation at that point.
One less thing to talk about at the study session.
Hearing none other people or nobody's got their hands up, I adjourned the meeting. So thank you.